Magical cowboys. Yeehaw.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Dungeons and Degrees. My name's Adrian.
And I'm Alex.
And today we have a special guest. Special guest, introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name's Tony. I use he, they pronouns. I am the host and game master for Rollout, a TTRPG podcast, and I have a degree in acting. So I went to school and it happened.
Yeah, such is the story of life. It happened and then I was done.
I spent my Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. in a big open room, trauma dumping to a middle-aged theater professor, and then got a piece of paper.
At what cost?
I pretended it would cost thousands of dollars.
Thousands of dollars. I had to shave the top of my head once. I had the friar monk kind of haircut. Yeah. So that was fun at 20 years old.
It's for the craft, though. It's for the craft.
That's what I tell myself every night when I cry to sleep.
At least you didn't lose the hair afterwards.
I did not.
I've watched some of I've one of my friends' children in particular that I have watched grown up and have just slowly watched him morph into his father who has no hair. And right now, I think at 20 years old.
Yeah.
So
that's all they wrote.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those little cells just stopped working.
They stopped. Where did they go?
I used to work in a eatery in college, and there's a bunch of frat guys who had lost a bet or something. So they'd come in. I saw a guy who's had long ass hair down to his shoulders, but the top of it completely shaved. I saw a guy his sideburns came down to his chin, up to his lips, and just curled that way. Nothing on the actual chin area. Just a wacky assortment of people getting hazed to fuck,
You really had cartoon villains walking around on your campus, huh?
My baby brother pledged a fraternity in Texas State, and he had to be mustache frat. So he had a mustache, which was disgusting because he has really good 5 o'clock shadow by 12:30 in the afternoon. And so it was just full porn stash with the crusty under beard that you're you should just do all of it or none of it.
Yeah.
Yes, the phases of hair. What are we talking about today, folks?
That's a good question.
See, my porn stash phase was 3 times after college.
That's not long ago, Adrian. That's the problem, is that you're going to sit there and say oh, it was so long ago. For you, that was not long ago.
So long ago. Oh my gosh. I also count the time in between the 2 years of college, after college, technically.
That's still during college.
No, it's not. I wasn't in college. I was...
Tony, what were you going to say? Because Adrian cannot justify this anymore.
I have yet to reach the porn stash era. So, hopefully...
my brother.
I am... I'm certain of it. I'm dreading it. And hopefully I'm not in Los Angeles when that happens. So...
It's what happens when everyone goes to Los Angeles.
That's your welcome to Los Angeles little gift bag. It's a porn stash. It is
and a fake little chest hair.
A little bit of fake chest hair,
mm-hmm.
And then a fry from In-N-Out.
I can also report that I've not gone through a porn stash phase.
Boo.
I know. I've tried, but the only hairs that really grow are the ones on the very bottom of my chin. So I could be a 3 little pig with the hairs on my chin.
I think that just means you have to go into your soul patch era. I think it's time that Alex has a soul patch era.
You're right. You're
Mhm.
right.
What were we talking about?
This is a Dungeons and Dragons podcast.
talk
sometime.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about rollout first.
Yeah.
Tell me what came, why rollout? Why not roll a lot and figure out? You know why?
So, my original thing for doing a podcast in general was that as much as I love Dungeons and Dragons, it was the first TTRPG that I ever played. There's so many D&D real plays out there, and I am somebody that I don't typically DM for Dungeons and Dragons. I'm usually a player. I'll be DMing my first D&D session on Friday, but like I DM for a bunch of other systems. And so I was like, I kind of want to make a show where we do shorter campaigns, like 20 episode campaigns, and we do a bunch of different systems. So that way, I can introduce some people to new systems that they maybe haven't tried before. I can learn new systems that I've never tried before. And, we just have a good time doing silly things. But that was kind of the initial idea, because the system that I really like running is Monster Hearts, which is powered by the Apocalypse system. The best way I can describe it is horny teen monsters, which like the bulk of my games are either scary, horny, or funny. There's no in between. So that was right up my alley. So that's where the first campaign idea came from. And then the one we've got coming up for Halloween, that's going to be the Call of Cthulhu game.
How do you feel about learning these systems and sort of, I don't know, how test play do they feel when they end up on the podcast? Like, is there a lot beforehand of you playing and figure out the system, or are you comfortable sharing that experience like while you're recording?
So I'm making things a lot easier on myself by making the first like 2 or 3 campaigns systems that I already know. So like that's why we're doing the Monster Hearts and Call of Cthulhu ones, because I have run a ton of Monster Hearts and I've run a ton of Call of Cthulhu. But like there are some systems that I want to do that I've not run before, like Vampire the Masquerade. I really want to do a Vampire the Masquerade campaign on the show, but I've never run it before. So I'm like, if the first time I run it is on a podcast or on stream, I think I'm okay with that. So it's just kind of like, if I mess up, I've never claimed to be a good GM. So therefore, it's not my problem.
I feel like that's what I did for the stream, which is like, man, what's really going to make me learn a setting? Saying we're going to stream it in an hour.
Mm-hmm. 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 Listen,
and
I thought you did a great job.
I think it went pretty well, especially with it being the worst thing I've ever done in my life, because I hate flirting.
I thought it was great. I heavily enjoyed myself.
It was. I think after we came back from break, did a couple of shots, got a little loosey-goosey. After break, felt better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And after the ending, I was dead.
Yeah, after the ending, you passed away. This is actually Adrian's ghost running the podcast now.
I can still edit. It's my unfinished business. And if I keep recording, then I'll never pass on.
No. If you are a ghost, that's a bad idea, dear ghost listener. Go finish your unfinished business.
If we have any spirits out there listening to the show right now, we just want to say you're good to move on. Finish your business and enjoy the afterlife.
Like, find an endpoint. Don't just keep on.
You can't stop.
You gotta get through that goal sheet at some point.
Just throw the goal sheet out. There's no reason for it at this point.
Pearly gates or circles of hell, wherever it may be.
Yeah, do I go to the afterlife or do I teach myself Photoshop?
The real ghost conundrum.
The real ghost conundrum.
That's why they get those, like, it's ghost learning Photoshop, all those images with those like faint outlines. The ghost is like, yes, it made it in.
You know, they were just taking all those old-timey photos of stairs, and they were like, what if we put a sepia filter on that and then just put like a little outline? And, you know, that's how we catch the
Of
paranormal.
who? Me. It's gonna be me.
So they're not wrong when they're saying it's Photoshop, right? It is Photoshopped, but it's just Photoshopped by the spirit itself.
Yeah. It's ghost face tuning, if you will.
This is next level right here.
Mm-hmm. Really,
You heard it first.
Down the paranormal. Yeah,
Right.
so
Roll out. See, this is what our podcast is about. It's not getting to the point, and you know what? That's okay sometimes.
That's
you know,
good. Sometimes
eventually
we
we'll
have
get
to talk
there.
about the ghosts. Yeah.
Yeah, the hour mark will come, and we'll try it again later.
Mhm.
I think
But
we
yeah.
actually got off track because Adrian was trying to pull for a compliment.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Well, you know, me suffering for art was not a pull for a compliment. Me suffering for a good cause was a pull for a compliment.
Listen, I listened to the Cadiosaurus episode. I think you're entitled to a few compliments.
So put that episode out, and then the server was like, Adrian was just dodging compliments for an hour, and I'm like, that's me taking compliments. At that, in my stage of life, it's like, thank you. Like, it sucks. It sucks. That's where I'm at.
No.
You know, it is what it is.
Truly. But yeah, hopefully you'll hear me on the podcast some point down the line.
The
Because
rollout podcast, not this one, right?
Yeah.
I talk way
unclear.
too much for you to not hear me.
Decided to mute all of Adrian's audio for the rest
Fair.
of Dungeons and Degrees. So it's gonna be just an interesting, like, missing half of the episode. It's a new experimental idea, and I think it's going to bring the show a lot of amazing artistic endeavors.
When they ask for the Adrian cut, it's not that his editing, it's him cut from the whole thing.
The Adrian cut is the Patreon exclusive.
It's so easy. I just mute the track and then export it again. It's the easiest Patreon gift ever.
Oh, you know, I can't wait for that. It's to kind of bring it back. I've been working on our Patreon stuff, so it's like we're trying to figure out. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do on that. I think with our upcoming series, it'll be much easier because it's all like spooky stuff. So, because I love horror games in TTRPGs. I think horror in TTRPGs is so fun.
Alex, have you played a horror game?
I am not, and I actually just finished season 1 of Dark Dice. That sound was awful. All that to say is I fucking hated every minute of it because I don't do spooky. I don't like jump scares. I don't like the idea of creatures crawling out of other bodies and anything that looks humanoid and does not move like a human. I actually this morning started attempting to rewatch again for the 4th time the first season of Supernatural. Okay, so this is the 4th time I've tried to get through the first season of Supernatural, and I hate it because I don't spooky. I love spooky season, but I don't spooky.
Interesting.
You know, I don't like watching like scary movies or anything like that, but I love like telling horror-based stories. So like for Rollout, the Halloween special that we're doing is a Call of Cthulhu game that I made up that's homebrew, and it's based off of the Five Nights at Freddy's video game series. So the whole thing is that it's animatronics that they're having to deal with. That's where the main scares come from, is animatronics. And so like I went and play tested this game with a bunch of people from our Discord server, and I have never seen a group of adults be so terrified in a Discord call than in certain moments of this game. And I was like, great, we're going to keep it.
Is that the adults? You said adults. Okay.
I didn't
like
adults.
Quote adults.
Definitely adults. Legally adults.
Legally adults, but adults question mark.
Working on it.
And I really enjoy, I don't like horror that's really jump scare heavy. I think that if I'm going to do a horror game, then it's going to be the tension and the atmosphere is going to be built up. You're going to know what you're getting into, and you're going to have to deal with the consequences of being in a space with something much more powerful than you. Or I'm going to go the mystery route of like, there's something going on. So like in the current campaign that we're doing now, there have been a little bit of horror elements in the most recent episodes that we've recorded that'll come out at some point, where a character is looking through somebody else's phone at old text messages, and then the text messages start talking to the person reading them. And so it's like there's a whole bit of like supernatural energy, and I'm like, if that's going to be what I'm going to do, then it's got to be done by building it up rather than just going jump scare, jump scare, jump scare.
Right. And creating that depth of the unknown and mystery instead of it like, and I'm going to kill you.
Yeah, because like...
Sorry, why would I do that for my editing?
Because the way I see it is that if I'm going to do that, I need to do it with atmosphere, because all of the NPCs that I create are ridiculous. Adrian has played in a game that I have run.
Confirm.
And the NPC that I basically glued to Adrian's character's side is the most ridiculous NPC I think I've ever created.
Please tell me more.
Yeah, so the NPC's name was Eli Greenblatt. He was this like short little ginger Jewish kid who was like going around at this high school. And the reference that the inspiration that I got was the YouTube channel Smosh. One of the cast members named Shane does this character called The Chosen. And so I basically like took the voice and made Eli this like super big like nerd who would be like using a katana to cut up cardboard boxes behind an Arby's.
No.
And like and the voice was like, I understand that you've come here today to train. And it was that for like 5 hours.
No.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So I have to kind of balance out the ridiculousness of the NPCs that are in my world with making the world a little bit scarier.
I don't like that trade-off at all. I don't know what's worse. I don't know if it is worse, like having worse NPCs, but then like having a nicer environment, or just having that terrifying environment, but like ridiculous NPCs. So enjoy that. I probably would love to play if I didn't know what I was getting into.
Oh yeah, no, and then there are just solely ridiculously silly games. For the start of Stratford, which is our current one, like the episodes that are out right now, it's just all silly. The like, we have a running joke on the show where the theater teacher is putting on a cabaret of shows where they take musical theater songs and they slightly change some of the lyrics to the SpongeBob meme, Mihoy Minoy. And it's called Mihoy Minoy, a musical theater cabaret. And so like in some episodes, I, as the drama teacher, will give a rendition of one of these songs. So where it'll be like, I think the one that we did at first was from the musical Dear Evan Hansen, where it was like, I'm on the ground, Mihoy Minoy. And then
keep going, please.
And then I look around and I see him, Hoy Minoy me. Mihoy Minoy me. Mihoy Minoy, okay. And then it would go on and continue. I think that we're gonna put on, because we have some musically talented people in the cast. So I think we've talked about like actually performing it as Patreon content. So we're gonna put on the actual cabaret, and it's gonna be a lot of myself and Noah singing.
Please, dear listener, go join their Patreon. You can leave hours to go do that. Yeah. Once it's up, it's there.
Once it's up, come join us. And our talkback show, The Ass Show. That all started because I was going to call it the After School Special. But then I was like, no, it's got to be The Ass Show. But, you know.
So good. So good. No.
So, Tony, what got you into D&D?
So I was in college and I had a group of friends in the theater department that were doing a home game, and they had done it like the year prior. And one of my roommates at the time was a part of that game. And so like the following year we were living together, and they were like, "Hey, do you want to join our game? We just had a player leave the game. We'd love for you to come in." And I was like, I don't know. Because I didn't really know anything about like D&D at the time. I was a big video games fan and like a big like actor and theater person. And so I was like, I don't know. That's a lot of recreational math. But then I played the cringiest Oath of Vengeance paladin that I could, immediately decided against that character, and then started playing a bard and fell in love.
Hell yeah.
But
when you say cringy, it was just like, no, we can't do that. Like stopping everything.
No, it was like, you know, those cringe lord backstories of like everybody in my village has died at the hands of demons, and I was the only survivor. And now I'm on a noble quest to kill all the demons that killed my mother and forced my mother to kill my father, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, it's the normal first player's character because like that's the story.
First player edgelord character.
Hell yeah.
And then I was like, no, horny pirate bard.
Yay.
I mean, that seems like a fair transition from they killed my family, they killed everybody, to everybody in my pants now.
Yeah, it was, the full trade-off was like this really gruff, like tough as nails paladin who was part demon, to me doing a horrible like Captain Jack Sparrow impression and like making music with my swords.
Yes.
It was, yeah. But then it was around the time that I had switched characters and the pandemic had started. And so we put the game on pause right before we were about to do some boat races. And I ended up watching some D&D content, ended up seeing the Critical Role Monster Hearts one shot and was like, oh, that seems fun. And then decided to run Monster Hearts. And that's where my love of other systems came in, was after that first Monster Hearts game.
Was the Monster Heart game your first intro into DMing?
Yes. Yeah, that was my first time ever DMing. It was my first time ever actually doing the system, was DMing it. And I had a group of friends who I was living with at the time that I was like, okay, so for my birthday, I'd like to try this. I don't ask for much on my birthday, but if we could do this, I'd really appreciate it. Sabrina was involved in that game, and it kind of led to a lot of the things that Sabrina and I do now as player and GM and vice versa. That also led to the creation of Sabrina proofing.
What is something you had a Sabrina proof?
Okay, so now this is where I have to defend myself, and I have to ask Adrian for support in these trying times, as Adrian probably knows exactly what I'm talking about. So I need to preface this with, I 100% believe that Sabrina is my favorite D&D player. Professional D&D player, amateur, whatever. I love the way that Sabrina plays the game. I think that they are endlessly creative in how they handle the game and how they approach different puzzles and situations. And so Sabrina proofing is less of like actual mechanical things and more of a mindset that I have to get into. Where I take any ideas that I have in my head and I throw them out the window, because Sabrina's going to come up with something, and I know that I am much better reacting to whatever Sabrina does on my feet than trying to plan ahead. So the Sabrina proofing of a game is just going in, no thoughts, head empty, and listening.
Yes.
And that there was one home game in particular that we did where it was like a heist mission. And I gave them the schematics for the bar that they were pulling this heist off at. And I was like, give yourselves as much time as you need to plan this heist. And I do a mechanic in my games called the Secret Room of Secrets, where I'll take players into either a separate voice channel or to a separate room if we're doing it in person, and tell them important information that only they would get to know. They all went into the Secret Room of Secrets for like an hour planning this heist. And we had a couple people just like hanging out with us while we were playing the game. And they asked me, so what's your plan for this? And I looked at them and I said, I don't have one. You can't plan for something that doesn't have a plan. And so they're giving me the plan. I'm the one that gets to foil their plans.
But I think that's a good piece of advice for, anyone really going into DMing, of not necessarily creating something for your players, but really letting your players tell you, and then maybe fucking that plan up every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
But, letting the players lead, which really, once again, puts less work on the DM.
Yeah, I don't like to plan things, so that helps me. And like my rule of thumb at my table is always that the player's enjoyment comes first. And so I love telling stories and being able to do all these fun, kooky NPCs and have all of these like ridiculously terrifying moments. But like if my players aren't having fun, then something's got to change. You got to be flexible with it, because like if they're not having fun, then you're probably not going to have fun either. And so it's like, just make sure your players are happy. They'll return the favor at some point. Yeah, that's my biggest advice is make sure that your players are enjoying themselves, because then you will enjoy yourself just as much.
Yes, definitely. I feel like it's all a part about everyone trying their best to have fun. And if it's like for people who are unsure, I think it's okay to kind of like lead them a little, give them a little cookie, like, oh, I don't know where to go. Okay, well, oh, is that a plot device coming your way? Yes, it is. Here you go. To give some leadway, but also if they're like running with it, let them run. Let them go where they want to go, because that's going to tell you what your players want to do. And then you can kind of set up something with a loose outline, because even if you see like they're going to run to one point, something might tell them, let's turn around. And that thing could be anything.
Or you're Adrian and let them go to the next step without having any proper precautions, not allowing them to move forward when you were not prepped. I don't know.
It was a 1 in 100 chance, okay? They had a good reasoning, okay? Listen, I'm loose and flexible. I think it's been kind of a good experience, because they're enjoying this part because they're getting a lot of information.
Yeah.
But they're getting their ass kicked. They're having to be saved. They know that like, ooh, these guys are like good, not like Adrian's just like toying with me. Like they are gonna kill us. It's because I have to break that facade of me, because that's who I was. Like Adrian said we're gonna die, and then none of us died. He keeps saying that every encounter, and nobody died. He's just saying that. Maybe that was true, but.
This is Adrian's chaos phase.
It's Adrian 2.0. Okay,
we have entered the chaos era.
This time with a little roll and tumble, a little fisticuffs,
you're gonna get
a little heat behind the punch,
Your chaos era is going to include bare knuckle brawling, a handlebar mustache, and just giant mugs of beer. Just a real bare knuckle brawler. I will say, I think, especially with Rollout, I've lucked out on having such a great cast for this first game that they will just like go and do whatever. And I get to just be like, okay, here are the consequences of your actions. Do with them as you will. Because we have some overlap in that we both DM for Lucy. And Lucy is another player that I am just like in awe with how they play the game. And so,
Lou has been in so many games. I think in all the podcasts.
Yes.
They're a part of.
Yes.
All the
they
podcasts.
are a part of all of the podcasts. I also have I also have Noah as a player, so it's nice to see Noah on the other side of the screen.
Mm-hmm.
And Noah is my chaos player, which I appreciate. Then
Noah brings that energy.
Yes. The biggest thing with all of the characters right now is that they're all starting to come to terms with the people in the game that their character finds attractive. And Noah has just been on a mission to sleep with the quarterback. And I respect it. And
Live your dream.
Respect the grind.
I am very giving with my players when they want that kind of thing, because I've told them that in the story I'm going to be very giving to you because I am going to take it all away at some point.
No.
And so it's going to be we are most certainly a comedy podcast, but I was like, there's going to be an episode where we are not a comedy podcast. We are not going to be a comedy podcast for like 2 or 3 episodes. So get ready for that. But I love the energy that Noah brings to the table. Then we have Emma, who, like, if I had to have a dream table, it would be Sabrina, Lucy, Emma, because there's just something about the way that Emma approaches the game, whether it's Monster Hearts, D&D, whatever, that I think is just so cool. It's like Emma's like the coolest player, in my opinion. Just like calm, cool, collected at all times, and it's just like, see, that's awesome. I really like how Emma plays. And then we have Luke.
Hey, what's that pause mean?
And then there's Luke. And Luke was the DM for my longest running home game. It was a game that Sabrina and I were players in, where it was set in this world that was like a version of ancient Greece. And so we had a lot of like Greek mythology in our game. And Luke is endlessly creative when it comes to world building, character design, and things like that. And so I am fortunate enough to have Luke on the cast, in that Luke will give me things to put in the story. In that Luke will put something in his character description of like, rather than being a werewolf, I want to be a wereboar. And I want to come to terms with that's going to look like in my normal human form. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then came the conversation of, I'd like to have a twin sister. I want to see how that dynamic turns out. And it just so happens I was looking to make an NPC for another character at the time. And I was like, great. So we'll just put the two together. And so Luke is, if I had to describe everybody as like, in terms of sports or gaming, Luke is that flex player who can just do whatever you need him to do and excel in whatever role that he needs to be in at any time. But God, do I want to punch him sometimes. But yeah, I've lucked out with a great cast for this first season.
Do you have to do a lot of homebrewing, because you're making all these like kind of short stories and stuff like that? When you put into these systems, I know that from my perspective, since I mainly do D&D, homebrewing includes, custom classes, custom weapons, items. So what does that look like in other settings, in other systems?
Yeah, so I'll use Stratford as the example, which is the current season of rollout that we have. That show has some homebrew skins that I've made for the game. Luke, Sabrina, and I, while we were just doing home games and stuff, we were looking at the system, seeing that there's 12 that you can play in the base game of Monster Hearts, and they provide some really great options for different types of monsters. However, I wanted to be a mermaid. I really wanted to be a mermaid, and there wasn't a mermaid option, and so I made a mermaid option. It was called the Siren, and it's my personal favorite homebrew that I've ever made for that game. It was my first one. It's one of the coolest. It has some of, I think that the abilities that the Siren has is really cool in that it allows for like persuasion and allows for you to put people under a spell to where they're charmed by you. And that kind of led to this boulder of homebrew to where now we have more homebrew skins than there are skins in the base game. And I love the idea of taking a game because, okay, I think rules are stupid and I don't respect them. So
That's
I
fair.
don't like
Look.
listening to the rules. And therefore, I will change a lot of rules, which is the thing that I do a lot in the Monster Hearts games. For other systems like Call of Cthulhu, the one that we're going to be doing on the show here pretty soon, those are all custom enemies. I've created custom enemies. I've used different mechanics for how things are going to work in the game, kind of building a homebrew environment. And the most amount of homebrew I think I've ever done is in that Call of Cthulhu game, because the animatronics themselves all have their own special abilities. And so there's one in particular that is a clown animatronic. And the clown animatronic's whole thing is that it does like a version of Tasha's hideous laughter, where it will paralyze their victim in like they're frozen with laughter as it like dances towards them, like Pennywise and It. And like there's not like, I don't come up with a basic stat block, especially in like Call of Cthulhu, where it's like you're not gonna beat the enemies that are up against you. That is about surviving and hopefully making it out alive. So I don't feel the need to create stat blocks and mechanics, but with the D&D game that we're going to be doing on the show at some point, now I'm starting to get into like, okay, so I need to come up with mechanics and how numbers actually work and a lot of math, which is what I was trying to avoid this whole time, but we're getting into it.
And here I am with math again.
And, the recreational math it pulls you in. But I love using homebrew. I came into TTRPGs with a homebrew world that was created by the DM that was running the game. I've never played in any modules. I've been fortunate enough to have GMs who are more so wanting to do homebrew settings. Not that there's anything bad with modules, but like they don't excite me. Because I'm not a big high fantasy person. Like, if I'm going to be playing in a game, it's going to be something with a twist. That's why, like, the D&D game is going to be a Western. And there's going to be magical cowboys. And, like, dynamite that casts fireball. And all of that stuff. And I was like, I can't handle high fantasy. I love playing in it as a player. But those aren't the kind of stories that I like telling. That's why my Monster Hearts game is also like Stratford is every character is loosely based off of a Shakespeare character, because then that allows for me to bring in Shakespearean tragedy and comedy and things like that. And I get to do all of these like crazy, insane things. Like Call of Cthulhu, that game is mostly set in the 1920s. I set it in the 1980s, and it's in like that like Stranger Things era kind of vibe. And bringing in the like Five Nights at Freddy's influence and making all these scary animatronics and things like that. And then like the Vampire the Masquerade game is going to be set in the Renaissance, because I want Renaissance vampires.
I want Renaissance vampires.
Mm-hmm. Just vampires in those funky little Renaissance pants.
Yep. And stripes everywhere.
And the stripes, yeah. Renaissance vampires in funky hats and pants. So that's what we're going to go for.
Hell yeah.
Oh yeah.
I fucking can't wait for my fancy pants.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do a little ditty.
Oh yeah.
Jig.
And the other thing is that like I also really enjoy games that allow for a lot of flexibility. I love Powered by the Apocalypse systems because it allows for a lot of flexibility, because there's so many different games that are run by the Powered by the Apocalypse system.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, if I want to do superheroes, then I can play Masks. If I wanted to do like a CW drama like Riverdale, I could do Monster Hearts. There's a series that we're going to be doing on the show that is literally a pro wrestling TTRPG where everybody is just going to be professional wrestlers and we're going to put on a pro wrestling show. And there's a Powered by the Apocalypse system for that. And I think it's a great system that allows for a lot of flexibility because I don't like rules.
You like character structures, sort of. Let's just do whatever the fuck we want. We'll reskin it in 1,000 different ways.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah. I am coming into this only thinking about fun. I don't want to do recreational math. I don't want to follow any rules. I want to see somebody hop onto the back of a rocket ship and launch it at the big bad evil guy and then jump off, flipping the bird while rock music's playing in the background. Does that mechanically make sense? No. Do I think it's fun? Yeah. So that's what's going to happen.
Hell yeah. I'm going to make that. My Renaissance pirate's going to Renaissance the fuck out of that rocket. I mean, I'm probably one of the big bads, but I'm going to do it.
Yeah. That game I'm looking forward to because I'm learning the rules of it now. I try to go in at least having read the guides and the handbooks for it. So that way I'm not going into it like 100% blind. And if questions come up, then I'm not like, well, I don't know. I can at least provide a little bit of an answer.
When you pick a cast for these games, do you have something in mind, or is it whoever is there kind of thing? Whoever's available, let's get them in.
Yeah, I have ideas in mind of like, oh, who do I think would enjoy this system? So if I know somebody that I think would enjoy a system that maybe hasn't played it yet, I will put them into consideration for a show. The other thing that I wanted to do with my show in particular is like have that rotating cast so that way a bunch of different people are getting to go, because I like running games and playing games, a bunch of different people and a bunch of different types of players. You know, I myself am a chaos player, and therefore, who would have thought? Who would have thought? I myself am a chaos player, but I can enjoy tables where it's all chaos players. I can enjoy a table where it's like a bunch of serious players, like a bunch of very serious, dramatic players that are wanting to tell this really heart-wrenching story. I think that's a lot of fun. Or like combat-heavy tables aren't really my vibe because, again, recreational math. But like, I can find moments of enjoyment in there. And so bringing in as many different kinds of players, I think, is also really, really fun. And I mean, the big thing is I also try to think about like, what kind of table do I want to see in my everyday life? And it's a table that doesn't look like just a bunch of me's. And so that's like another thing is I want to use whatever I can to help uplift other voices, like, you know, uplift BIPOC voices, uplift, you know, fellow queer artists and things like that. And so it's like, I kind of look at it in a way of like, well, this is the table that I would like to see in real life. So this is the one that I'm going to put out on the show.
Sounds fun. I'm excited. I want to play that Masquerade game. I have like, what's it called? I think I have a vampires book I just got from my uncle's bookstore. And I'm like, I don't know what this is, but this looks interesting. Let me just try this out. And I opened the book and I'm like, I don't get anything because I got a supplementary book. I just picked something off the shelf and not enough information. But now I got one recently because we're doing this game. It was like something about like dealing with factions, and it's not for D&D, but that's what I'm going to use it for because I'm starting to make factions and stuff like that. And I'm like, what do other people have to say about this information? So it's been really interesting so far.
Yeah, that's another thing that I like about running a bunch of different types of systems is that there are some systems that will have certain ways of thinking about something that another system won't. And so like one of them, for example, that I really like is in Call of Cthulhu, they have sanity. And when a character experiences something horrifying or traumatic, they have to make sure that their sanity is like okay, and if they fail the roll, their sanity lowers. And I think that is such a cool system, and I try to incorporate it in different ways where, like, if in Monster Hearts, for example, if a character sees something traumatic, then I'm going to have them roll to keep their cool, which is normally used in like situations where they're getting bullied or like somebody's being mean to them. But I'm like, no, I want to see how your character does when dealing with trauma, and this system does it really well. So I'm just going to copy and paste it into this system. And so, yeah, I think that's a lot of fun.
I think it's also kind of gets you out of the mindset because like D&D is a very combat heavy system. You know, you have stats for armor, you have stats for attacks, you have stats for, magic and things like that. And for like things like Monster Heart, you're mainly doing strings, and then you have like 3 points of harm for everybody, like things like that. Like it's minimal attacking and more on the RP heavy side of being with that character, opposed to be, I'm going to be the best fighting machine there is, and there's nothing you can do about it. And this is like, we're going to have some fucking drama and some fucking tea, and it's going to be great. And then maybe we'll get into a little bit of battle, and that'll spice things up for the drama. But mainly it's about the drama.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The way that, like, combat, because that's something that I'm kind of working with right now in terms of Stratford is, like, how can I handle violence in that game? Because I know that after we're going to actually be recording next week, we're going to be recording the session where it becomes not a comedy podcast. And so I'm currently trying to wrap my head around how I want to handle when a player will quite justifiably want to hurt somebody, like how that's going to manifest itself, how I'm going to treat it, and how I can kind of spin it in a more RP centric way. And I've been looking at a lot of the like D&D systems of like, okay, I could maybe pull this, I could try to pull that. If they are like, I'm going to hit this person over the head with a lead pipe, then I'm like, okay, this is probably going to do this, but then I can also swap it out, give them a condition and all of that stuff. So I feel you on that of trying to swap things around, because that is currently what I'm doing.
Yeah, combat can be a slog, and I've been trying with my, what's it called? With my current games, I've been doing things a little bit more, as best I could, fluidly make it so that it just happens. They're not all waiting on me to roll 5 different dice. I just roll them all at once, and I fucking space them out. Hit, miss, hit, miss. All right, rolling damage for all of them. Okay, here's yours, here's yours, here's yours. All right, let's keep going, because that's not the cool part. The cool part is y'all beating people up and talking and being intimidating and creating a bond with your players.
Yeah, that's a part of the reason why I am nervous to start running D&D, because it is so combat centric. And I'm like, ooh, there's also a lot of homebrew. So I'm trying, like, I got to figure all of that stuff out. But I think it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
I think it's a balance, because I've played in the campaign that I'm currently in. We do have the 5E structure, but I wouldn't say at any point I feel like we're tied to it feeling like Dungeons and Dragons, that it can ebb and flow, and as long as you've got flexibility in your thinking and your game, and you've got all this background knowledge of different things that you can be doing with all of these different systems, and like, how do you put it in the like D&D terms? Now that I'm thinking about this, all of this really sounds like I'll get on that. That sounds like that's a tangent I was about to get on.
What do you mean? What do you
Well,
mean this podcast doesn't have tangents?
No.
It's okay. I was about to go out on another tangent anyways.
Ooh, I felt it. Well, it's like, just when you think about like religion, right? Religion all has the basic structure. It all is about the same thing. It's just content-wise is a little bit different packaging. I don't know why I talk about religion so much on this podcast. We can unpack that later.
Hey, we're going through it. Don't worry about it.
Patreon content. Well, Patreon content. But it's the same thing. Like, what is your big bad? How are you going to get there? Are you going to fight your big bad? Do you have to mentally play a game with them? You know, is it Sherlock or is it Avengers? You know, and it can always change. It can always, I mean, like you said, you just got to watch your players. And if your players are really enjoying the combat, then you can continue the combat. I saw an interesting TikTok of, I don't know, it was a TikTok. I don't know. It was a teacher, maybe, who has a club, or maybe I dreamt this and this is like coming from my own brain. I don't care. Who had a D&D club at their school, and you know their kid was DMing, and they were like, "Oh, they're in combat. How do you know how to end the combat?" Kid was like, "When it looks like nobody's having fun. Like, I'm not keeping track of anybody's HP. I don't give a single fuck. You know, it's just about enjoying, and you know, part of that is getting good at watching like other people's cues, and so like start watching your players. Do they look like they're having fun? Do they look like they're really bored? And if they're bored, you know, even from like me being a player, if I look bored, I'm not necessarily bored. I'm just like in my ADHD way. Like I'm doing something else in my brain. But it doesn't mean I'm bored. Sometimes.
Sometimes, maybe all the time, you know.
Sometimes, maybe all the time.
That's one of the things that I was starting to grapple with. And that kind of also led to me grappling with when it's okay for the players to fail in the story, because we're getting in the show. We're getting to a point where the players are going to fail, and it's that inevitable danger and that inevitable feeling like they couldn't do enough to save the person, save the world, stop the big bad. And I think a lot of it does come down to like watching your players for cues, and also just like talking with your players, effectively communicating with people to be like, hey, just so we know, this is something that could happen. You could very much see somebody that you love die. Or in the case of Noah's game, a fan could tell you how to kill some NPCs, which will then affect your players, which is what I did. And I continuously apologize to Noah's cast for that. But it's like, that's another thing that I think other systems provide excellent resources for, is what happens when you fail. Call of Cthulhu is a great system for explaining how players can fail at the objective but still have ways to succeed later on. And pulling from games like Call of Cthulhu are how I've started to look at failure. I put failure in quotation marks in my games, because it's like, it's just more of like a temporary setback. Because like, if the game fully ends in like utter demise, if that's not the thing that you were going for from the start, of like the game is going to end with everybody's death, then you know, it's not as exciting if that was not what you came in for. Because like, if I'm going to go in for a game of 10 candles, I know I'm going to die at the end.
Unless you're Sabrina.
Unless you're Sabrina, who makes the truths of, they have a metal plate surgically inserted in their back so the bullet ricochets off their back right after getting shot.
I'm gonna hear about this later.
Oh goodness. But yeah, I think other systems provide a lot of great ways of looking at how you want to run your table using whatever system that you want. The way I think about it is like, you're building like a sundae, and you get your base ice cream, and then you get all your little different toppings, whatever you want on there, and it just becomes whatever kind of custom sundae you have there. That's kind of how I look at using TTRPGs, is that like, okay, so I'm going to be using a Powered by the Apocalypse system, but I'm going to take this from this game and this from this game and this from this game and kind of make it into something that I and my players enjoy.
I'm excited to see what comes next from Rollout. I'm excited to, see you in more of, the games I play, which I thoroughly enjoy you having you as a player. It was a hell of a time. You also came in with Sabrina during the split episodes.
Oh, those episodes.
Which I want to try to do like another one shot where it's just Alex, Ben, and you, Tony, where it's everybody, because y'all eventually meet up at the same spot of this hell going down. Because Alex's character went on a train towards y'all at the very end of leaving the rest of the party behind. So
I cannot wait for the interaction of just seeing this tiny little gnome and this big old cat just holding back hordes of whatever was in there. I enjoyed those episodes mainly because Sabrina came in with very specific intents for Crea. And for the briefest of moments, I think Ben and I switched it around a little. And that was through the power of friendship.
Even though I told her, maybe not all the time. Maybe sometimes. But I'm not going to tell you that, okay?
Maybe sometimes. When it's from the unlikeliest of friendships between a tabaxi and a gnome.
And then Alex came in with everything's fine, except you murdered somebody. Adrian just told me.
They did. Look, I was not sugarcoated. Despite being a full Southern draw, there was no sugarcoating of anything that was going to happen with me there.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, my little British cat was just vibing with the bow. Was like, all right, looks like I'm about to Hawkeye everybody out of the sky.
Pretty good. I loved it. But yeah, that's what we look forward to.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I can't wait.
We've hit the hour mark. Do we have any more questions for Tony, Alex?
No, Tony, I love you so much.
Oh, and I love both of you. This has been fantastic. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
The best caller.
I settle for mediocre.
You settle, but you far surpassed mediocre.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I feel confident in going and looking at all the other systems and just Frankensteining them together.
They're so much fun. Everybody go online, go to your local gaming store, pick up a new system, go enjoy yourselves. There are some that are really easy to get into, like Honey Heist. And then there are some like Call of Cthulhu where it's like, that's a lot of math.
It's a lot of math.
But go pick up a new system today.
Tony, where can they find you?
So you can find me on most social medias at Tony the Kiger. It's Tony the Tiger, but with a K instead of a T. You can also find Rollout, a TTRPG podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us on TikTok at Rollout Pod and on Instagram at roll_out_pod. We're currently in our first season for Stratford High, so that's exciting. The first 3 episodes as of the time of this recording are out. They're silly, they are gay, and they're a fun time. So I recommend checking them out.
Thank you, dear listener, for joining us on another episode of A Mostly Dungeons and Dragons. We stuck to it most of the time today. You can continue to join our antics on anywhere social medias are found at Dungeon and Degrees. We are also trying to grow that Discord server, so feel free to join us on the Discord if you need another Dungeons and Dragons community. Be sure to rate us, whatever the top rating is on your podcast app. 5 stars is probably the way to go. If not, you will never get out of traffic on 101 days in the state of Texas. So if you don't rate us 5 stars, then I would suggest never being in the state of Texas. You know, I don't make the rules.
We're gonna throw hands.
You know, it sucks. If you haven't experienced being stuck in traffic in 100+ degree weather, I don't suggest it. It's terrible. Even a brand new car, your air conditioning will not fucking work at all. So why chance it? Just rate us 5 stars on podcast apps. Easy. Also, you can also join us on our Patreon if you want to make your money work best for small podcasts like us. Join us over at patreon.com/dungeons and degrees. Our benefits include ad-free and early episodes, one-shots, pencils, stickers, and more. We're also donating $1. We're doing it $1 for every patron at the end of the month. So help us help our community that way as well. You will also join the ranks of Melissa, Skylar, Megan, Alex, Wani, Lucy, Guy, and the ever effervescent Paige. So thank y'all for supporting us every time we come out with a new episode.
Yes, we appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening. My name's Adrian.
And I'm Alex.
And I'm Tony.
Go have some fun.